The following is an encore presentation of new expressions.
Not quite 10, but we're pretty close, so I think we're okay to start.
You reckon?
Yes, I reckon. Did you say I sprechen?
Drecken?
Sprechen. Drecken.
Drecken's a word.
Drecken.
Yeah.
Drecken's a word.
Drecken.
It actually is a word.
Yeah.
What does
It's
it
a
mean?
combination of do you reckon. It's drecken.
See, I did not know that. I got to keep up with my acronyms, man.
Yeah.
Don't I?
It's only a word in my
mind.
world, but
Forgive
it is
me.
a word.
Goodness help me, Jesus. I need to keep up with kind of thing.
Oh, guess what?
What?
It's 10:05.
New
We can
expressions.
start.
Friday morning. It's going to be a beautiful day. 27, I do believe today is.
Yeah,
Oh,
not
it's
bad.
going to be awesome. And 30 tomorrow for all you sunbathers. Yes.
Okay.
I'll be getting out working on my tan. Look a little light here, man.
Excellent.
Seriously, I could sing an opera.
Excellent.
So it's going to be nice. So it's always good to sit with you on a Friday. Thank you for bringing my coffee to me, amigo. I appreciate
Pleasure.
that. And it's always good to talk to Kingdom people in the neighborhood.
That's it. Yeah, where we spend an hour solid
Yes.
bragging on King Jesus and his kingdom and
Wow.
kind of exploring what he's up to in our midst as we lean into oneness, participate in
Amen.
a very, very beautiful gospel and watch the kingdom advance all around us. It is that, we're in that season of conspiring for the success of each other and
Love
each other's
that.
ministries.
Still love
and
that.
so the body of Christ on the Central Coast, reflected in one church and reflected in many streams, giving hearts towards one another and abounding in love towards one another. It's a great day to be on the planet.
Amen.
Great day to be on the New South Wales Central Coast.
Great day to be in the studio with you.
Great day to have a mega guest in the studio.
Mega. Oh, he's got the title Mega Guest already, is it? Mega Guest. Oh, okay. Elevated.
It's just how we roll.
Yes, it is.
It is. Oh, well, I say mega guest because I have tried for I can't tell you how long to get our guest in the
I
studio.
know. I was beginning to think he wasn't real. He
I'm
doesn't
like
exist.
a
There's no way
I'm
he
like a
exists.
dog with a bone. I'm not letting go.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether we start with pastor, reverend, poet, or just all around creative kingdom
royal,
guy.
Right, pastor, reverend, poet. Yes. Yes.
Will Small, welcome.
Thank you. I got to be honest. I'm not a rev, so I will
Okay.
not insult the good name of anyone who's done
Who's
the
actually
study to
done
achieve that
the
title.
work.
And speaking of a mega guest, my
Yeah.
last name is Small, which is kind of a
Opposite of
God-given,
mega.
humbling mechanism in my name. But it's great to be here with you guys.
Small by name, massive by kingdom reputation.
That is right.
Amen.
I love it. We love it. And note to self, scratch rev. Gotcha. Okay, it's gone. It's gone.
There you go. Out of respect for all the other revs out there, there's at least a handful.
Real revs.
We love
Revs.
them.
I'm just an
Praise
imposter.
God.
Yeah.
Now, I got the opportunity to connect with you, know about you, because one of our good friends, Pastor Craig Corkle, was kicking around at Narara Valley Baptist 100 years ago. Well, at least a few anyway. And in that context, there were things kind of just spilling out all over. At that time, season was, Benj pastoring, now planting the greenhouse guys that just up at Long Jetty, the entrance in around there.
Clam Church.
That thing, Clam Church.
Clam Church.
They grabbed it,
Iconic
and
roof.
owned it.
Yeah.
And that's kicked on, and then they've planted out of that to Bloomco as well, and that's kicking on down at Edelong, and that's going great. At the same time, there's this faith community expression that's kind of birthed with this guy called Will, and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And so I kind of knew about that you were walking in a leadership role with the people of God in a particular and unique context, which started way back there, and I mean years ago, and obviously continues to morph and adapt and shift and whatever, and it is what it is today, which will get you to explain it to help us understand what your faith community looks like in these days. But how long have you been on the coast, and how long have you been walking with Jesus? And give us a bit of an overview of your world.
Well, where to begin? So I've been on the coast for about 12 years. Moved up. My wife and I, Sam, we had been married for 1 year. We were little babies, got married 22, 23 years old, and then moved to the coast. I'd finished my degree, which was a Bachelor of Arts in English and Philosophy. This was in Canberra, which is where we both grew up.
Oh, wow.
Grew up in a big family.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. You're not responsible. Grew up in a big family, 5th out of 6 kids.
Oh, wow.
And my oldest brother is actually the pastor of Erina Baptist Church here on the coast. Joel.
Pastor
Some
Joel.
listeners may know
Legend.
Joel.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know that the Central Coast existed, actually. I think a lot of Canberrans, you just
Same.
kind of jump from
Yeah.
Sydney to
Newcastle.
Brisbane.
Same.
That's how the map goes.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
But we came up to visit Joel and Bron and their family after they'd moved to the coast here to take the role at Erina. And we thought, this is a really nice place.
Yeah.
It's only 4 hours from Canberra, and it's close to Sydney and Newcastle, and sort of has the benefits of the coastal, more relaxed lifestyle with a bit more culture than, Bateman's Bay, which was that was my reference point for the coast growing up. So there's a bit more happening here. No offense, Bateman's Bay folks. So we were actually having a conversation back then. We were at a stage in life where we, newly married and didn't really have any long-term commitments, and I'd just finished uni, and we sort of went, it'd be nice to try and live somewhere else in the world and give it a go and see what we learn about ourselves. And the coast seemed like a pretty safe move. And Craig, little anecdote connecting to your world as a Salvos minister. The first job I applied for from Canberra, applied online for a job as a youth worker at the Salvation Army youth centre in Wyong.
Yes, yeah.
And I had a Zoom interview. This was in 2014 or something. Nobody even knew that Zoom was a thing back then.
Are you serious?
I can't imagine how terrible the video quality was. But
Sorry, I'm just stunned. You mean my movement
Yeah.
was actually doing Zoom back then?
yeah, early adopters, man.
Wow.
It's true.
That's crazy.
I know.
So then
That's true too.
I got the job as a youth worker, and I borrowed somebody else's car because Sam still had to finish her job in Canberra for a few more weeks. So I borrowed a car. I drove up on a Sunday afternoon to the coast, and the next Monday was my first time ever stepping foot in Wyong and starting in my role as a youth worker at the youth centre there.
Wow.
And then very shortly after that, I met a person who I would consider to be a legend on the coast. I don't know how many people would know him, but Phil Palace, who was a youth pastor at Narara Valley Baptist Church
he's
back
a
in the
great guy.
day. And I'd heard about him in Canberra. His reputation had travelled.
Yeah.
And so I started working at the youth centre. I quickly got in touch with Phil and said I'd love to catch up and just pick your brains about youth work and the coast. And so then started going to Narara Valley Baps.
Yeah.
And were there for a couple of years before Sam and I had our first son, Noah.
Wow.
And he was born. And then 2 months later, I started in a role as the young adults pastor at Narara. So it that was a pretty significant time of change in my life.
That?
Yeah.
That. So are you the individual who set up or started to put legs on the recording facility at Wyong was it the Oasis Center you were at?
The Oasis Center, yes. The recording studio was already there.
It was already
before
there.
my
Okay,
time.
yeah.
But
Ask me?
Was that you?
No. It was my mum.
Really?
Yeah. So my mum, who was head of Salvos in Newcastle Central Coast region, there was a divisional headquarters she was kind of responsible for. Yeah. And I had this vision of, because there was some dramas, you would have probably been aware of it, but early days, where there were dramas going on amongst the young people in Wyong in particular. It was a real mess and getting some national attention. And she's gone, we're the church, we need to do something. Worked in with a partnership with council, and they built the Wyong Oasis Centre, and part of that from the get-go was the recording studio with a whole bunch of cool gear and equipment and a skate park back in the day too.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, the skate park that was there. I mean, now it's a car park, but when it was a skate park, and you're right. I mean, it was actually quite confronting for me my early days in that job, because some of the challenges that young people were facing in the area were significant.
Intense.
And you go to Wyong today, and it's happening. You got the art house, you got a bunch of trendy cafes. But while I was working in that role, the art house was being built. Yeah. There was no Glee, no Duck Moose, no cool alleyway. It's amazing how a kind of cultural renaissance that's happened there in the last decade. But
so I was heading down the year before you got here. And I remember my sister-in-law saying, you're moving to the crime capital of New South Wales. And I'm like, really? Because I'm like, I knew nothing about gospel. You just drove right past it on the way to Sydney.
Yeah.
I knew it was there, the gospel was over there. That was it. Wow. Okay.
And so, like testimony to God, because, there have been intercessors praying for decades for this region.
Yeah.
And the redemptive purposes of God in the Central Coast these days, like you just described, it's a renaissance. There's some real beauty that's kind of, you see it everywhere. I mean, the natural beauty's always been there, right? The lakes and the beach and the mountains and the properties, the farms and whatever. It's always been a beautiful space. But what's happening regeneratively, if you like, redemptively, I would say, in particularly Wyong and Watanabe in that region, but all over the coast is. It's just glorious, and then the measures are, the sociological measures and data around it are all up and to the right. They're just going, it's going gangbusters.
Yeah.
There's an awesome guy who's kind of driving some of that as well. Matt Lusted, who's kind of the chair, I think, of the Chamber of Commerce and investing massively in some of that property stuff. Where his place is the Duck Duck Moose site and all of that. Oh, remember when we had the pizza by a meter with the Saronis? That was oh my goodness, that was one of my favourite places to go.
It was sad
land.
to see that chapter come to a close. Yeah,
that was still available online. Like
Still
you could,
okay.
and for events and so on, they're killing it that way.
But his wife went on to. I mean, I don't know if you ventured into the Nurture Me spot. It's beautiful, and it's needed. It's a needed facility and a beautiful, wonderful facility. I was only just in it last Saturday.
Yeah.
It was a conference. My wife was in. I had to go pick her up from that.
So listen, I remember last time we bumped into each other was at Love Lanes. Again, that's part of Matt Lusted's kind of thrust of rejuvenation, of redemption in the region. And when you see Wyong particularly plastered with even scripture that points to the love of God and whatever, but just natural, a natural festive nature. Like we're talking about 15,000 people or something cramming into the local space last time round, and the celebratory, it's just heaps of fun. And you were performing. I found you. I went, hold on a minute, because there was some just in one of the back lanes was the Uniting Church have a hall there that's been there for
McKinnon Hall.
Yeah, been
heritage
there
listed.
Yeah.
Not because it's beautiful, just because it's old.
It's old, yeah, and it's a burden on someone to keep it nice and clean and paint it up and still going small and old.
It was great. Yeah, there's so. Our church, our faith community meeting ground is now part of the Uniting Church, and there's a Uniting Church a deacon named John Dacey who's relatively new to the area, and we had some conversations about activating that hall as a part of Love Lanes Festival. And there's many things I love about this because Love Lanes Festival is obviously for the whole community.
That's right.
It's not a Christian event per se, but as you note, they've actually got public artwork there in Wyong, drawn from 1 Corinthians talking about love is patient and kind.
Precious.
And so we did basically like a pop-up exhibition of local love stories. It's called Love According To. Yeah. And I'm a poet and a storyteller by trade, and I worked with a friend of mine who's a photographer, and we took photos of locals with interesting love stories, and then I wrote brief kind of reflections on their love stories, and people came into that room during the festival. They could kind of take a look at the way that we'd set up those stories and leave some notes around their own love stories, what love according to them is. And then we had a poetry slam, which is where we connected. And a poetry slam, for anyone who has not heard of that, is basically an open mic competition for poets who perform their words. It's very democratic. It was started by a guy named Mark Smith in Chicago back in the 80s, who thought, man, poetry's gotten real boring. And it seems like it's very, ivory tower, elitist, and even the poets at poetry readings seem to be falling asleep. And he said, this is not how poetry has been throughout history. Through every human culture and time period, there has been stories told and passed on through poetry, through song. And so he kind of created this format where anybody could put their name on a list. The name goes into a hat. They get 2 minutes. Name gets drawn out of the hat, and they get their chance to go up and say their piece. And so we did that as part of Love Lanes
Yeah,
Festival, and it was
wonderful.
beautiful to see some of the people that came out and shared their words, vulnerably and courageously.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the fact that the Spirit of God is being placed inside of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is a dimension of kingdom creativity in everyone. And some people have had that story of creativity just utterly suppressed, either by influences around them or ultimately in partnership with themselves.
Got that right.
Oh, I could never say.
Oh,
I
yeah.
could never sing. Oh, I could never. Whatever it is. And oftentimes you don't ever get to see that flourish. But in that room, we found you created a space where people could go, you know what, I actually would love to have a crack at that. I've got something I want to share. And it looked like, gee, that required a great measure of courage. I'm going to be vulnerable and put my words out there, for people to interact with. I just think there's something utterly beautiful about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But once you know, and when you give yourself to it, oh my goodness, the stuff that pours out. A friend of mine in WA, Lacey B, she's an artist. She sings, but she loves these sorts of things. She's always up for one. So oh man. So I know where you're going with this one, but I don't think we have time. We might cut to a song. We'll come back. So then maybe you can proposition someone in the room to do that. Possibly yourself. I mean, your mom put the music studio in. She must have done it for a reason.
Here we
go.
She
must have known. She must have known.
I hear you.
We'll be back, folks. New to the playlist, Miles Minnick featuring Brooke and Transformation Worship with New Birth. Hope you enjoyed that one. Special guest, mega guest in the studio, Will Smalls. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Now, we heard before we took off that you were a poet, and we didn't know it.
Yeah, you didn't know. I knew it.
You knew it.
You
were up on it.
And I knew it.
Yes.
I've known it for a while.
You had an inclination?
Yeah, well, I do have a little bit, actually. So I do a fair bit of speaking in schools and running poetry workshops. And I've been doing this for 15 years or so. I go into a room, 200 year 8 students, and I ask, how many of you go to sleep at night and you just dream of finishing school and becoming a poet? And you can imagine,
Everyone.
there's one kid
Everyone.
that puts up their hand just to, make a joke out of it. But there's no kid
one.
that dreams of that.
No one.
And so my talk is called How I Accidentally Became a Poet. And I have a bit of a goal to try and inspire people to think a bit wider and deeper about, how they might classify poetry. Because a lot of us, we just think, maybe some traumatic memories of Shakespeare in the English classroom, and that's our sort of whole picture of poetry. But certainly my poetic horizons were opened up when I was in high school, and I've built a career around that, really.
Yeah. And I want to explore what that looks like, because you were saying you're one day a week working for the church, and then you got the other 4 days a week you're filling with your own, work life. But when I remembered hearing you introducing your journey to poetry, you wanted to be a rapper, right? Wasn't that the story? Is that
correct?
Correct. You're going to be a world famous rapper.
Yeah, the story in a nutshell is that, when I was in year 8, going to a little Christian school in Canberra, very sheltered, comfortable life. Yeah. And a friend of mine, clearly a public school kid that somehow made it in to the school for a scholarship or something, he burnt me a Tupac CD.
Oh.
And I remember listening to, this rapper from New York talking about politics and racism and injustice and about poverty, and I felt like he was talking directly to me, even though he lived around the other side of the world, and he got shot when he was 25 years old and died. Our experiences of the world were completely different.
Wow.
And yet his wordplay, his storytelling, his imagery, I felt like he was speaking to me. So that was an early revelation about the power of, all language really, but I guess poetic storytelling. So I wanted to naturally become the next greatest rapper.
But you did do some stuff.
I did do some stuff.
Yes. Because, unbeknownst to you, that's where I know you from.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, come on.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, you did do some embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, it's a common question. I'll be speaking to high school students, and they say, well, why don't you become a rapper?
Yeah.
And I sort of say, I actually did it in reverse order. I started there. I started with beats. I started with, that format, and I love it. I'm still a fan of hip-hop, but it was actually, I had a teacher when I was in year 12 who saw me in the schoolyard wanting to be the greatest rapper, and she said, you should enter a poetry slam. I had no idea what that was at the time, but she gave me a flyer. There was, the Australian Poetry Slam is the biggest sort of competition for performing writers in Australia, and I entered a heat back then.
Yeah.
I went along to the heat, and I had my 2 minutes of, saying whatever overconfident stuff I had to say back then. I was 17.
Yeah.
And but what happened that was, I think, magical was that I listened to all the other people that got up, and like we were saying before with Love Lanes Festival, people are getting up. It's just so raw, just a person and a microphone and their 2 minutes. And I saw people from all walks of life, all styles of, language delivery. And it opened my world a bit, just like when I first encountered Tupac, and it opened my world a bit wider. And so I kept going back. I got kind of hooked.
Wow.
And I've been lucky enough. I've performed 3 times in the final of the Australian Poetry Slam at the Sydney Opera House.
What?
But more than that, I mean, that's a nice highlight moment.
Yeah.
But more than that, I have been able to build a creative career where I would describe poetry as the center of gravity. Nobody's sitting around just being a poet in a log cabin writing poems for a living.
Sure.
But I get to do a whole diversity of creative work, and poetry is the thing that to me is kind of the center of that little solar system. And then through that poetic lens, we're making films and we're doing different kind of creative campaigns.
Wow.
And I've got a live show that I go and do in schools and theatres and places called This Is How We Survive, which is an integration of poetry and films and a mental health message. So I feel very lucky for how it's evolved. I would never have seen it coming.
Wow. And it just seems to just be incredibly big. There's a question in the back of my mind, which is, do you ever feel a pressure to land something, like to put something on paper? Is there, like, I remember there's ministering in a church up in Queensland once, and one of the ladies at the church, a professor at Queensland or QU or whatever it is, and she was saying she'd lived under this story of publish or die. Right. It's like, if you want your career to stay anywhere, you just got to keep publishing, keep putting it out there. And the intensity of that for her was just overwhelming, right? And I'm wondering, as an artist, do you ever have that sense of I gotta get something on paper? Is it like that, or is it just?
Well, I do. I have a couple of books, and it's probably the opposite for me. I mean, poetry has historically been a notoriously hard industry to make money out of books, right? Sure. It's not exactly like crime fiction or something.
You're right.
But I used to perform my work, and people would then immediately come up afterwards and say, do you have a book I can buy? I want to revisit that poem that you shared or some of those words. So that was actually the thing that made me go, if I had a book right now, this person would have bought it.
Yeah, and
so I put a collection together a few years ago called All Things New, and then in 2022, I think it was, I got a grant to put out another book of poetry, which is called Poems for When the World is Ending. And that was the poetry that I wrote, between 2020 and 2022, as we saw so many events that felt like the end of the world, but also, the kind of the works in that book are exploring that at the same time as these kind of, large-scale distressing events, magnolias are growing over my neighbour's fence, and whales are migrating, and caterpillars are crawling on the front step, and they don't know what a pandemic is, and the world is this beautiful and gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching place all at once. But yeah, I mean, I'm hard to pin down, right? I've always wanted to do a million different things. So there's moments when it's I want to write the book, and there's moments when it's at the moment my big goal is to produce a documentary. And we've kind of got some initial seed funding for that, and we're trying to bring that to life, but again kind of with this mental health message. And I suppose for me, all the work that I do, I describe it as social impact storytelling. I care about the power of story, but I want to use it to help create a kinder, more beautiful, more inclusive and just world. So a lot of different ways you can do that.
That's
my metric,
right there. Brilliant vision statement. And that's what the Lord's put in your hands to craft and to do, and quite inspirationally as well. I absolutely love hearing that.
I like how you said, you do I do this, do I do that? That's a common thing amongst most creatives, man. They have to grapple with that because they're not locked into one space. I've got a few different spaces. So what do I do today? What do I do here? What do I do here? I don't know how you map that. Do you have any tips for any creatives out there who, they're good at many things and they're drawn to all of them, but where do you start?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this recently. My small business is about to turn 7 years old, and I am quite amazed, really, that it's survived and that I have, a few people that I employ now and kind of a little team, and we work on some pretty big projects. But I never had a business plan, and I haven't followed any of the conventional wisdom that people that know this stuff do.
Sure.
Yeah.
But for me, it's about there's always been enough passion that drives me. There's always been enough skill that I actually have something that I know I'm good at and I can offer. Yeah. I've had a very relational approach, and I think that that's key. Whoever you are, whatever 100%. Your field, your relationships open the doors. And then I think there's just something about time. If you keep doing it and you keep following your curiosity, you have integrity over time, things kind of grow in an organic, natural way. Not, there's so much you go on Instagram, and if you've got any small business stuff targeted at you, it's all rapid growth and 10x your following and be more productive. But I think actually, if you're doing beautiful things, gradually they grow over time.
Warren Buffett, arguably one of the richest men in the world, does not have a promotional department for his company. He said, that's just form. People do it because this is what they tell you should do. He said, I'll give you one tip. Just make good things. If it's good, people will buy it. I thought, I like that.
Yeah, or in your context, just bring some beauty and people will engage. I think that's extraordinary. Can we just dip into something you've been dancing around, which is this idea around mental health? I know there's a big project in you at the moment, like it's almost upon us in the coming weeks. You want to just talk to us about
so to just give a very brief bit of background context, in my family, we lost my sister-in-law a couple of years ago. She died by suicide. And to anyone listening, if you know that story, my heart goes out to you. Yeah. But as part of responding to that, again, I wanted to do some creative work that would help remind people of both their strength, but also, it's never too late to reach out and ask for help. Yeah. And so I was able to get some funding from the Primary Health Network for an innovative suicide prevention project, and that's kind of how we developed this performance piece called This Is How We Survive. And in October, as a part of that project, we're doing a big online campaign called Take Care with What's Rare. And the idea is that when astronauts go out into space, they experience something called the overview effect. I've become really fascinated by this. Astronauts, they go out into space, they look back at the Earth, and they have this profound realization about how rare and precious life is. And they often come back with a deep desire to protect and to advocate for the Earth and its inhabitants.
Yeah, right.
So I've kind of turned that into a whole bunch of creative content asking, what if you could see yourself in the mirror? What if you could see the person across the table? Just like astronauts view the Earth from space, rare, precious, and worthy of care. Wow. So if anyone listening is interested, during October we'll be sending out a whole lot of inspirational creative content with some practical tips around how you can care for yourself and those around you. You can find out more at thisishowwesurvive.com.au/rare.
Amen. And on that, if anyone out there suffering from any sort of thoughts of suicide, you can always call Lifeline on 13 11 14, or even the REMA building here with Peninsula Lighthouse, counselors inside the building, if you need some help.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful you took a moment to paint that picture. And I'm incredibly grateful that there's a way in which creatively there can be some messaging and some engagement. The invitation to see people. What was the phrasing? See them as rare?
Precious. Beautiful, worthy of compassion and care.
Yeah, worthy. How beautiful. I was ministering this weekend, just gone up in Newcastle area, and the theme of the event that they had was compassion, and the idea of compassion being just a pillar of the kingdom of God, and the idea that we as the saints might have our hearts established by grace and flow and see with compassion. that idea of compassion sees. It's that imagery of the prodigal father, right? You talk about the prodigal son, the dad who's at the gate looking and sees from a long way off. Compassion sees, and in this, epoch of time where people often feel unseen. I mean, I think that's the key, isn't it? That people are sort of stuck in this sense of no one sees me. It wouldn't make any difference if I wasn't here. Those sort of lines or narratives of thinking that are very, very common, sadly, in the world today. And we're as the people of God, we've got a grace, to see people and to respond with, mercy, respond with the kingdom, respond with, I see you and I want to walk with you, I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
So this is coming up. The launch is in October.
It's in October. And from the 1st of October, we'll be putting out a whole lot of content on social media, as well as there'll be kind of weekly emails for people that want to sign up to receive those positive messages. And the peak of the whole thing is on October 20. I've been working with a music producer, quite a big Australian music producer, who's produced some music that I've written some poetry to that takes people on that journey out into space. And then looking back at life on planet Earth, both in terms of our shared home, but also each individual life. And that song is called Gravity and Grace, which is a reference to a French philosopher named Simone Weil, who wrote about the gravity and grace of life and this weight and this heaviness, and yet woven through all things is the grace of God.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, we've got an amazing film clip that we've worked on with a bunch of incredible creatives. We're launching that on October the 20th, and we're hoping we can get as many people as possible to share that with someone who needs to know that they are rare, they are beautiful, and they don't have to do anything incredible. You don't have to achieve something to be viewed in that sort of light. You just, by existing, you are worthwhile.
Yeah, and the scriptures point to that. We no longer regard one another according to the flesh as we once did, the chosen one. Oh my goodness, just imagine that for a minute. But we see with eyes according to the Spirit. And I think C.S. Lewis picked that idea up, and he says, if we were to properly see the Christ in one another, properly recognize Christ in one another, it would take everything within us to prevent ourselves from bowing down and worshipping the other. He was saying, like, have those eyes to see one another and see the Christ
the
in
image
one.
of God, the Imago Dei.
Come on,
absolutely.
Come on.
Yeah.
And really, that's the invitation of this program that you talk about. This event that we're going to champion that a bit. I think I really want to see that. Kick 40. How many thousand people you want to?
Well, my goal is to reach 50,000 Australians with that life-affirming message. I mean, I'd love to reach a lot more, and I'm sure that we can. But it's good to give yourself a number.
Yeah.
If anyone is motivated to be a part of it, we've actually created basically a toolkit for anyone who wants to share this in their school or their community or their church. So again, that's all at thisishowwesurvive.com.au/rare. I'll stop plugging now. I feel like I'm what a salesman.
Say it a few times.
Say it again.
Thisishowwesurvive.com.au.
And that was with his commercial voice.
Rare.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll be back with Will Small.
This is a poem for my son, Leo. For Leo, my son, named after lion. May your roar be unleashed. You were not made to be silent. May your roar be unleashed, but may your claws stay in hiding. This world, my son, it does not need more fury-fueled fist fighters lighting flex muscle fires, burning more and more bridges. It needs the carefully composed stitches of those who will unleash their inner riches on repurposing the discarded, refurnishing the disheartened, refurbishing the thick darkness to let light shine through. Leo, my lion, be furiously gentle, be unstoppably humble, be quietly courageous, be a new kind of lion. Leo, be wild, be untamed and unbridled, but remember that true strength is restrained and not often sighted. It's the 90% you don't see of the iceberg, the churning below of the duck's quiet legwork. It's every harsh word that doesn't make it from your brain to your tongue. It's the unseen powerhouses like your heart and your lungs. It's having the power to crush and choosing to forgive, it's being crushed by power and choosing to forgive. Leo, my lion, be humble, not giant. I gift you the name small. Do not try to hide it. Let me let you in on a secret, the whisper in the quiet. The bigger you try to pretend that you are, the larger the doubts you will carry like scars. But when you own that you're just one, in the current snapshot of 8 billion on the pale blue dot, and yet here you are right now on the pale blue dot, with that glorious spirit in your respiratory system, you will feel enormous and tiny, and it will all be a gift. So Leo, my lion, may you be gloriously, victoriously, enormously small. But do not be silent. May the world hear your roar.
Wow. Wow. I want to be Leo.
I'm not going next.
I want to be Leo.
Leo doesn't care about that poem at all.
I so want to be
He's
Leo.
7 years old and he's just a heckler, let's be honest.
Yeah. My.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, thank you for that.
How long did it take you to craft that?
Well, I wrote it when he was about 2 weeks old, and I remember, I guess the thing about creativity is that you have to show up regularly.
Right.
But the inspiration, when it comes quickly.
It's like a download. That's the expression.
So I think the poem came quite quickly.
Right.
But the quickness is slow if you have a practice of showing up, if that makes sense. You know, you show up with regularity and you're there more often when those moments come. Whereas if you just wait for those moments but you're not showing up, they might not, be so frequent.
Yeah. My number one engineer just texted me that poem needs to go up on Insta Reels right now.
Yeah, honestly, it's just beautiful, mate. I remember I got some tears going. I'm a big softie, a big marshmallow, but I remember hearing you perform that at the Love Lanes Festival and just, again, like, oh, what beauty, a friend of ours, kind of theologian and writer and preacher, a guy called Brian Zahn, BZ we call him, frequent offender on this program. He wrote a book called Beauty Will Save the World, which he lifted from a philosopher, and in that he's exploring, well, the church has gone about trying to win the ethics debate and trying to win the right and wrong debate and the moral debate. But actually, they're not the debates that the world is really having with us. It's, probably discarded many of the thoughts that we might have in that epoch. But he says the debate we can have right now is beauty, and it's not an argument; it's a demonstration. And you just gave us some beauty right there.
Yeah, that's very kind. Thank you.
Love it. And so your business, what's that called?
Lead by Story.
Lead by Story. And you're in schools everywhere. Still? You still?
Yeah. Do a bit of schools. Work with some amazing non-profits, and I do a fair bit of work in the health space. So I've been able to present poems like that to rooms of doctors and nurses and mental health clinicians, which has been a real privilege as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Again, if beauty is needed anywhere, it's needed in these spaces.
Amen.
Yeah.
And really, the beauty I guess I'm alluding to is the cruciform nature of Christ, which I couldn't help but hear all the way through your poem. We would say that Christ's journey to crucifixion, carrying the cross, that was his walk of victory. The cross moment, his coronation. Where many would say crucifixion, I would say his coronation. And there he is, self-emptying love, bringing all the dimensions that you wrote of from Leo, bringing expression to that, forgiving, I was thank you. We'll have to get you doing some more of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, love it so much. You do gather in an interesting expression of church life, of walking with the saints. My wife and I have the privilege of leading, I think it's 4 or 5 house church, or we call them community tables, really. Tables where the neighbours are invited in for meals and journey together, that looks like faith exploration and growing in discipleship and following Jesus. Kind of a unique little thing that we get to do. Your expression, tell us about that.
Yeah, so we started Meeting Ground is what it's called.
Yeah.
We started it in February 2020. We had no idea what was coming at the time. But the vision was, we wanted to start a church for the misfits, is the kind of language that we used at the time, particularly people that for a variety of reasons had found significant barriers to belonging in a mainstream church environment, whether that was to do with their mental health or to do with big questions that they felt they couldn't kind of always ask out loud, or other things that become stumbling blocks in the life of faith. And so we sort of said, could we create a community where people can bring their faith and their doubts, their questions and their longings, and we gather around tables, much like Jesus often did.
Yeah.
Of course, that was a great idea in February 2020, but by March 2020, we were all on Zoom.
Yeah.
And yet we prevailed. And,
well done.
And
I'm with you on that. It was like a prevailing. It's like there's no cut up neat little worship service that church is defaulted to. We're like, how do we keep seeing each other and be family together in this? Yeah.
So the way that we gather as a community these days is we have a bit of an eclectic rhythm. Every 2 Sundays we meet in a home, and largely we just connect and we prioritize the sort of sense of relationship. And
beautiful.
We'll explore a question, do some sort of kind of reflective, contemplative kind of exercise.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then we have one Sunday a month where we meet in nature. We'll go and do a beautiful bushwalk on the coast, or meet down at the beach, and that's just a safe, simple place for people to come along and connect.
Love it.
And then we are quite active in a WhatsApp group through the week, and try to have that, that notion that community is certainly more than a Sunday gathering. It's a group of people that you hopefully feel safe with and can ask your questions with and be yourself with. And then I suppose the public work of our community is we have a podcast called Spiritual Misfits.
Yeah, right.
Which
cool.
that kind of emerged because we thought there's lots of people that might not feel quite like they fit. Yep. We can't fit them all in our lounge room.
Sure.
But could we put something out there that just lets people know that if you're on the fringes of faith, you're not alone and you're not out of your mind. And so it's beautiful. We've had guests on from all over the world, and we have listeners all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's just a kind of the public work of our small flesh and blood community in some ways.
I love it. I think we've discovered there's forums where we can occupy some space that can bring some beauty, right? And I contend that podcast would be one of those forums there where beauty's on display. But in for me, what's really valuable is that there's a grounded place of expression of that as well.
Yes.
That is in the week in, week out, walking with some misfits in the world. I mean, I'm in the Salvation Army. We're spectacular at misfits. I'm perhaps the misfit in the kingdom of God.
It's amazing how many people find something of their story in the word misfit.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? And lots of people that I've encountered that are significant leaders or at the helm in some sense, and yet don't quite feel like they perfectly fit. I think it's a healthy thing. I think if we look at Jesus, he's the ultimate misfit, right?
Come on.
Misfit doesn't necessarily mean you're on the outside. You can be at the center and still feel, some tension, which is a healthy thing at
100%.
times.
I absolutely agree. I consider myself a misfit. No, absolutely agree, man.
Well, here is the perfect human being. What are we going to do? Oh, let's kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just extraordinary, right? And so I think the label fits, and well, I think very, very cool. So, how do people find that podcast?
So they can just look up Spiritual Misfits on, Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever, or they can go to spiritualmisfits.com.au if they want to look at the actual, the kind of website. We're trying to create some other resources as well for communities that are looking to experiment with different forms of gathering, things that are important to us. So, what does it mean to create a trauma-informed community?
Right,
to have spaces where people that bring, we all bring, our history and our wounds with us. But how can we make churches safer places? So we're trying to create some work as well that can equip and empower. And we're supported by the Sydney Central Coast Presbytery of the Uniting Church, which is wonderful. They've kind of helped to resource the creation of some of those things.
Yeah, wonderful. And we've got some beautiful friends in that space as well. I'm thinking, speaking of reverends, Richard Harris is just superstar, and love him down at Terrigal, and a bunch of guys from there and all over. And so praise God that you guys have Expression, which you're meeting. Do you meet in the McKinnon Hall, or where do you meet?
No, so we meet in homes, and we've just started meeting a little bit in the Wyoming Community Centre.
Okay, yep.
But until now we've tried pretty hard to keep it to homes or public spaces.
Yeah, that's our story. It's in homes and in the beach and at the park and wherever we want to be, because the church is not the building, it's the people, right? You can't go to something that you are. Yep. And we're learning that sort of stuff. And around a meal, I mean, meals just seem to be super, super important. And having time together with one another. We always build in communion as practice, for us, and everyone's welcome to that. And we also build in a creed as well, because I love the idea that we're anchoring our story in a greater story that's ancient.
Love that.
And very helpful as we do the journey. But listen, my, I'm so glad we had you in today. My kids on the way to school said, "Dad, what are you looking forward to?" That's one of the questions we ask ourselves each day. I said, I've got this guy, he's coming in, Will. I've been looking forward to having him in on program, and mate, you have not disappointed. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Pleasure was all mine.
And let's try not to be so elusive next time to get on air. Anyway.
No,
I'll be back.
People know his people. We'll make it happen.
There you go. We'll see you next week, folks.
You've been listening to an Encore presentation of New Expressions, which can be heard live every Friday morning at 10 a.m. on 94.9 Rima Central Coast.